Hey guys, welcome to another video. Want to take some time today to talk about the Hollywood strikes and how it's affecting my favorite franchise, probably yours as well, Star Wars. And the effects are big, and the longer these strikes go on, the worse they will be. And I mean, that is kind of the point. Probably not a lot I want to show you guys for today's video. I will throw up some Starfield footage or something. Nothing with any spoilers, don't worry. Alright, so for those of you who have been living under a rock or perhaps aren't based in North America, there are two major groups right now striking in Hollywood. The first is SAG-AFTRA, that's the Screen Actors Guild, an American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. They represent many different entertainment professionals, but most relevantly to this discussion, actors. The second party is the Writers Guild of America, which represents almost 12,000 screenwriters, many of whom are based in Hollywood. This is arguably the most significant entertainment labor stoppage in several decades. The writers have been on strike since May, with the actors joining in July. Don't worry, I'll get to the Star Wars stuff in a minute. I just want to give some background for people who aren't aware. A lot of the demands center around the changing landscape of media, everything from AI, both in script writing and actor replacement, to I think probably the biggest thing would be streaming residuals. Every day it seems like there's a news story of an actor or a writer coming out and saying, hey, I'm not getting paid anything for this major series. Like Aaron Paul came out today and said he receives $0 for Breaking Bad, which remains one of the most popular evergreen streaming shows. I don't need to put my politics into it other than to say I think that's probably not fair at all, and in this case I certainly side with the unions. Make up your own mind, but the key point is this strike has been going on for some time and there is no end in sight, largely because the issues here are so important. The corporations and the Hollywood studios do not want to give up these residual rights and the other rights being discussed because it's a significant source of income, which will only get more important in the future most likely. Even if you're not familiar with union activity near where you are, if you're a fan of, say, sports, you probably know that when it comes to these crossroad foundational issues, unions will put their foot down and hold out for a very long time, and the corporations will do so as well. Many Star Wars projects are affected by this work stoppage. Oh, and by the way, this could get worse as SAG-AFTRA is also calling for a strike vote against video game companies because, to put simply, people aren't working. Like, that's just how it is. People don't work during a work stoppage, obviously, and that's everything from performing the sort of main role that you would expect from a writer or actor, i.e. writing or acting, but also ancillary duties like promoting material. Now, there are some exceptions with pre-contract work, but that's also why you haven't seen, for example, the Andor cast making their rounds, which is a shame because I'd love to see them on talk shows and whatever else. Today, Bespin Bulletin put out a piece saying that Skeleton Crew has been delayed to 2024 with additional Star Wars series possibly being delayed. And you have to understand, any series which is not finished, is not being worked on by editors, is subject to these strikes. And even in those cases where pickup shots need to be taken or additional writing, they will suffer. The one exception would be animated series, because those largely exist, as far as I'm aware, under a different union. But I mean, as Skeleton Crew shows, even projects which seem to be near finished are subject to being delayed. Skeleton Crew has finished filming, they're probably doing post-production right now, and it's still being delayed, at least according to Bespin Bulletin, until 2024. I'm guessing that's because the kids are a big part of the show, and they sort of want a Stranger Things effect where they become mini stars of their own. But we also know that Andor Season 2 has had filming interruptions, even though it's largely being filmed overseas. The Acolyte, which is scheduled to release next year, is also finished filming, but again, hard to say how the strike will affect everything, really. And then, of course, we have Ahsoka Season 2, Dave Filoni's movie, Lando, I suppose, and anything else in the pipeline. It's going to be just messed up for God knows how long. And I'm worried because I don't know what the path forward is here, and I can see both parties being very stubborn. And I don't mean stubborn in a derogatory way. In the case of the writers and the actors, I think they're doing what they need to do to not not only improve their current situation, and many writers and actors aren't, Brad Pitt or the equivalent writer, but they're also protecting their own future as well. With that being said, I do want to change topics here because there's another aspect of this which is unrelated, but I do want to discuss. So when the SAG strike in particular started, less so with the writer's strike, there was strike rules put out for members of SAG-AFTRA. Basically, as I said, no promoting struck series, no promoting things outside of a contract, and I think just generally due in part to a misunderstanding of labor law, but also some poor statements. A lot of people have been trying to push these SAG-AFTRA requirements to people not in the union with no desire to join the union. One of the big things about the strikes is you're not supposed to promote, even indirectly through reviews, any struck show. Some people have been trying to apply that to people like me, YouTubers, reviewers, but worse off, regular folk. And that's just not appropriate. Listen, I fully support the union. I know pretty much everybody who's doing reviews of these shows fully supports the union, but we're also just doing our job. The actors generally did not stop promoting things when the writers struck. And I mean, to be clear, the SAG rules aren't asking for us to stop. We're doing our job, which is completely distinct to that of the entertainers or writers in the SAG-AFTRA Guild. Now, what is a little bit different and that I've seen some of is what's known as scabbing. You've probably heard that term before. A scab is either someone who crosses the picket line to return to work, or more commonly an outsider who moves in to replace someone who is striking. This is crossing the picket line, and for pro-union people, this is bad because you're essentially worsening the strength of the striking individuals because you're removing their only bit of leverage. And I think some individuals, some influencers, YouTubers, whatever, are rightfully being called out for essentially stepping in and taking the role of an actor. Not in acting, but generally in related promotions. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with going to a press screening or anything like that, but where people have been getting a bit more criticism is where they're going to these like red carpet events and acting as influencers on behalf of the studio. That's very different than what I was just discussing. Like, generally when it comes to labor law, you strike for a union because the union provides you benefits and probably supports you as well during the strike. Now, in a way, of course, we all benefit from writers and actors being paid well enough to do their jobs and do it well, but I also don't feel personally required to stop covering Ahsoka, to stop covering whatever projects I like. And I will say, I have noticed that a lot of the people who said they wouldn't talk about Ahsoka or whatever else have certainly went back on that, and I think that's fine, but I don't know. It just feels like a lot of divisiveness that is based largely on misunderstanding. This has been a total rambling end to the video. I hope you enjoyed nonetheless. I'll see you soon.